The news started quietly. No loud headlines. No big announcement. Just one message. Governor Alex Otti has met President Tinubu. And instantly, the entire country paused. It wasn't a rumor. It wasn't speculation. It was real. The meeting had already taken place. And it wasn't a normal political visit. It wasn't a handshake moment. It wasn't a courtesy call. This was a meeting with weight. A meeting with tension. A meeting with purpose. Because Alex Otti didn't walk into Aso Rock to discuss ordinary government matters. He didn't go there to trade political greetings. He went there for one mission. To push for the pardon and possible release of Nnamdi Kanu. The timing was precise. Deliberate. Calculated. It happened just days after he visited Nnamdi Kanu in Sokoto prison, following the life imprisonment sentence that sent shockwaves across the nation. That prison visit changed everything. Otti saw and heard things that pushed him into immediate action. The visit was not ceremonial. It was serious, personal, and urgent. And it made him realize that the situation could no longer be ignored or delayed. Something had to be done, and fast. When the news of the Aso Rock meeting broke, Nigeria reacted in real time. People were stunned. Some were hopeful. Some were worried. Some were angry. But everyone understood one thing. This meeting mattered. Some saw it as a step toward peace. They believed a real conversation between Otti and the president could calm tensions in the southeast, reduce anger, and possibly prevent unrest. Others were cautious. They feared that any move toward pardon might reopen old wounds, inflame emotions, and stir divisions that had simmered for years. And some were openly critical. They believed the life imprisonment judgment should stand as final. They saw the meeting as a potential betrayal of justice. Yet despite the differing opinions, there was one undeniable fact. The country was now paying attention to every move, every word, every possibility. Because Alex Otti is not a man who makes political gestures lightly. He is deliberate. He is strategic. And when he moves, it carries meaning. When he speaks, people listen. Otti did not approach this meeting casually. He carried with him the weight of a visit to Sokoto prison, the voices of a region, and the tension of a nation that had been simmering for years. And as he walked into Aso Rock, that weight followed him. The corridors were quiet. The meeting rooms were silent. Every step, every decision, every word carried the potential to change the story entirely. The timing of the meeting also added to the tension. It was not long after Nnamdi Kanu'S sentencing. The life imprisonment decision had angered many, frustrated some, and unsettled almost everyone. Otti's visit to Tinubu came at the perfect moment, when attention was high, emotions were raw, and political stakes could not have been higher. People speculated endlessly. What could have been discussed? Did Otti ask for a full pardon? Did he negotiate some compromise? What were the arguments he presented? And how did Tinubu respond? No official statements were released. The media had little to report beyond the fact that the meeting occurred. But in a country like Nigeria, silence speaks volumes. And this silence only fueled the tension further, adding a layer of intrigue and anticipation. Because this meeting was not just about one man in prison. It was about the direction of a region, the stability of a nation, and the possibility of changing a story that has defined the political climate for years. And while the country speculated, the real truth remained known only to those in the room, Alex Otti and President Tinubu. The governor had carried with him the concerns of millions, the grievances of families, the frustration of communities, and the undeniable fact that keeping Nnamdi Kanu behind bars indefinitely would not end the tension. It would only make it worse. The stakes could not have been higher. Because this was not simply a political conversation. It was a conversation about peace, unity, justice, and the future of a nation. And the impact of that meeting would ripple across the country in ways many could not yet imagine. When the news finally reached the public, the reaction was immediate and widespread. Social media buzzed with theories. Political analysts dissected every possible angle. Citizens debated what the meeting could mean for Nnamdi Kanu, the Southeast, and the nation as a whole. And while everyone talked, one thing was certain: something had shifted. For the first time in a long time, a direct, deliberate, and urgent conversation had occurred at the highest level about an issue that has divided Nigeria. A conversation that could change everything. The meeting between Alex Otti and President Tinubu was private. No cameras. No statements. No headlines. Just two powerful men in a room with one of the most sensitive issues in the country. Otti did not waste time. He came straight to the point. He had a mission. He carried the message of a nation that had been quietly simmering with tension for years. He carried the voices of families, communities, and the Southeast as a whole. And he carried the reality he had witnessed days before, inside Sokoto prison. He explained what he had seen. He described the life imprisonment sentence, the isolation, the atmosphere of confinement, and the man behind bars who had become a symbol of frustration, hope, anger, and resistance. Otti did not embellish. He did not exaggerate. He presented the facts, raw, simple, undeniable. Then he explained what the country was feeling. He painted a picture of tension rising like a storm that could not be ignored. He spoke of protests, debates, community pressure, and the palpable frustration across the region. He made it clear, the current approach cannot continue without consequences. Otti did not plead or beg. He did not resort to dramatic language. He was precise, deliberate, and firm. He told Tinubu that if Nigeria wants peace, if the nation wants stability, if the government wants to avoid deeper conflict, then it must reconsider its approach to Nnamdi Kanu. He proposed a solution. A presidential pardon. A possible release. A chance to reset the conversation and reduce tension before it escalates further. The atmosphere in the room was serious. Tinubu listened. Not a word of interruption. No comments, no reactions. Just listening. Because he understood the weight of what was being said. Because he knew this was not a simple political request. This was a conversation about the fate of a man, the peace of a region, and the stability of an entire nation. Otti laid out the political realities. He explained the risks of ignoring the voices of the Southeast. He warned that prolonged imprisonment, protests, and frustration could push the country into dangerous territory. And he reminded the president that political stability cannot rely solely on force or enforcement. It requires dialogue, compromise, and careful decisions. He presented alternative paths. He suggested ways to release Kanu while maintaining legal and political integrity. He argued that a carefully managed pardon could reduce tension and avoid conflict. He emphasized the symbolism of the gesture, a move that could unite, heal, and restore trust. And he made it clear that inaction could have the opposite effect: division, unrest, and deepening mistrust between the government and the people. Tinubu absorbed every word. He did not react publicly. He did not speak impulsively. He was measured. He knew that whatever decision he makes next will be dissected, analyzed, celebrated, or criticized across the nation. He understood the stakes: political, social, and emotional. And yet, despite the tension, the conversation was controlled. No shouting. No dramatic gestures. Just clarity. Just facts. Just the undeniable reality of a nation at a crossroads. Otti made one thing very clear. This is not about power politics. This is not about personal gain. This is about the nation. This is about preventing escalation, promoting unity, and restoring trust. This is about a single decision that could have national consequences far beyond the individual. He reminded Tinubu that Kanu's imprisonment has already become a symbol. It is not just a sentence. It is a spark that ignites emotions, protests, and conversations. It represents frustration, anger, and the long-standing perception of marginalization. And leaving it unresolved could cost the nation more than anyone realizes. Otti did not threaten. He did not demand. He presented the situation as it is. He framed the decision as a necessary step toward calm, stability, and unity. He outlined the options. He made the consequences clear. And he left the decision in the hands of the president. The meeting lasted long enough to cover every detail. Long enough to weigh every possibility. Long enough to make sure there could be no misunderstanding. And when it ended, there was silence. No applause. No declaration. No signature or formal announcement. Just two men leaving the room, each understanding that something significant had occurred. The meeting was not about public recognition. It was about results. It was about careful navigation of one of the most sensitive issues in modern Nigerian history. And it was about a conversation that could determine the next steps for Kanu, and for Nigeria as a whole. Outside the walls of Aso Rock, people speculated endlessly. Social media buzzed. Analysts predicted, guessed, and debated. But no one knew the full truth. No one could see what was actually said. Inside the room, however, the reality was clear. A conversation had taken place that could change the course of the nation. A conversation that acknowledged the tension, understood the risks, and offered a possible solution. A conversation that, for the first time, put the idea of a pardon on the table in a serious, deliberate way. And with that, the stage was set for Chapter 3. Because the impact of this meeting is only beginning to unfold. The nation is now watching, waiting, wondering what comes next, and realizing that a single conversation behind closed doors may shape the future in ways few can predict. The meeting ended quietly. No cameras. No press releases. No applause. No statements. Just two men, Otti and President Tinubu, leaving a room that had held the weight of one of the most sensitive issues in modern Nigerian history. But while the room may have been silent, the effects of the meeting were anything but. The country now waited. The tension was palpable. The questions were everywhere. What had been decided? What had been agreed upon? Would there be a pardon? Would Nnamdi Kanu finally be released? And while the answers were not yet public, one thing was certain: the conversation itself had shifted the narrative. For years, the issue of Nnamdi Kanu'S imprisonment had dominated headlines, protests, and debates. It had divided communities, politicians, and citizens. It had created mistrust, anger, and frustration. And now, with this single meeting, the dialogue had moved from speculation and tension to direct action. Otti had presented the realities of the situation. He had spoken honestly about what he saw, what he heard, and what the nation was feeling. He had outlined the risks of maintaining the status quo. He had highlighted the potential consequences of inaction. Tinubu had listened. Not distracted. Not defensive. Not dismissive. He had absorbed every word. And that absorption mattered. Because in Nigerian politics, listening is often the first step toward action. And when a leader truly listens, when he understands the depth of tension and the risks involved, decisions begin to take shape. Now, the focus shifts to the implications of that conversation. Because whatever happens next will affect far more than one man behind bars. It will affect the Southeast. It will affect the perception of government in the region. It will affect the nation's sense of justice, fairness, and unity. If a pardon or release comes, it will not be simply a legal or political decision. It will be a statement. A signal that dialogue matters. A sign that compromise can prevent unrest. A chance to restore trust between the people and the government. But if the government does nothing, if the status quo continues, the consequences are equally significant. Tensions could rise further. Frustration could turn into protests. And mistrust between the region and the federal government could deepen. It is a delicate balance. One decision can tip the nation toward calm or toward chaos. The timing of the meeting also matters. Coming days after Nnamdi Kanu'S life imprisonment sentence, it signals urgency. It shows that leaders recognize the risks of delay. It shows that dialogue is possible even when tensions are high. Otti's role in this is crucial. He carried the voices of the Southeast. He carried the message that peace requires action. He carried the evidence that the current approach could not continue without consequences. And for Tinubu, the meeting presented a choice. A choice between firmness and flexibility. A choice between maintaining the status quo and taking a risk for potential unity. A choice that will define his leadership, at least in part, for years to come. The nation now waits for the next steps. 4 statements. 4 decisions. 4 actions. But even as it waits, the impact of the meeting is already being felt. Political analysts are revising their predictions. Community leaders are preparing for possible outcomes. The public is debating what a pardon or release could mean. And all of this stems from one quiet, deliberate, and powerful conversation behind closed doors. It is a reminder that in politics, and in life, sometimes the most significant moments happen away from cameras, away from headlines, away from public scrutiny. It is a reminder that change can begin quietly, with clarity, courage, and honesty. And now, the focus is on the outcome. Because the next few days, weeks, and months could redefine the story of Nnamdi Kanu, the Southeast, and even Nigeria itself. The meeting has opened a door. It is a door to potential peace. A door to possible unity. A door that could heal old wounds, or expose new ones. The country watches. The tension hangs. And the stakes could not be higher. Will Nnamdi Kanu be pardoned? Will he be released? Will the government choose dialogue over division, action over inaction, peace over tension? No one can say for sure. But one thing is certain, the meeting has changed the game. Alex Otti went in with a mission. Tinubu listened. And Nigeria now stands at the edge of possibility, waiting, watching, and wondering what comes next. Because one conversation, carefully conducted behind closed doors, has the power to shape the future. And in this case, it could shape the future of a nation. The quiet move is done. The dialogue has happened. And the nation holds its breath.